There we go. Now we're trying to.
Okay. I recall this meeting to order. Attendance,
Beth McFarland here.
Eddie Bell here.
Brady Oxender here.
Tiffany Hughes here.
Tony Benedetti.
Okay. So one of the things that we had been talking about is the structure over potentially near the basketball court. And I finally was able to get, after calling 10 different people to get a quote. We skipped you, and we're just gonna talk about something really fast, Eric. We don't have names tagged off. So this quote, and I'll pass it around for everybody, is 18 by 40. Originally we were talking about 20 by 40, but obviously there's a reason that they did 18 by 40. I would assume the roof trusses or something like that. $34,000. That's for the concrete, the structure, and the liquor.
So that's all said and done, delivered, installed, ready to go. Okay.
So I'm just saying, this wouldn't be the final work of everything. This would be, okay, what material are we using? You know, the material's on here, but is this strong enough for what we're looking for? Is this exactly what we're looking for? Is this the size? The concrete that he's doing basically is exactly for that structure. It would be like, because originally I was talking about like 30 by 50 or something like that. This would just be the concrete reinforced,
What
for the
size?
structure.
What size was that structure again?
18 by 40.
18 by 40.
Okay.
And then it's the concrete would be 4 inches thick, concrete floor. So anyways, I have all of this, I have not scanned it in and done everything for you guys, but I will do that. I just kind of wanted to let you know it's taken like 3 weeks to finally get somebody to respond. I do not know when they would be able to do it. Obviously, we would have to go through council, do all of that, but again, more likely a spring project, assuming council approved it. Or we could get it approved this year and then start construction in the spring if that's what everybody decides to do. So I will work with them, again, just because it's the only company that has gotten back to me. All of the other options have been drastically more expensive. Just the building structure itself has been almost $30,000. So this almost is way low, so I want to see exactly what we're using. I mean, I do have a diagram. So I'm going to scan this in, I'll send it to everybody, so everybody's fully aware of what options we have, but it's
What were
more of
the-
a one-stop shop. And
What
it's,
were the building materials for that one?
I'll pass it out to you guys without going through everything. It talks about the siding, because this one would have a back wall, a window, framed opening, yeah, it's all in here. Pass it over, I have no idea. Yes,
Just out of curiosity, what is the structure for by the basketball courts?
it is just a.
Park shelter.
Park shelter, there you go.
Three sided?
Pavilion.
Something to sit in or something?
No,
Yeah,
it's
put picnic
4
tables
side,
in there.
open all the way around.
This one might be open on 3 sides.
Or is it on the other side of the street from the basketball?
Correct.
Correct.
So to take a step back, the role of planning and zoning is to evaluate ways to improve upon the village.
Sure.
And really the power that we have is to make recommendations to council. So what we've been trying to do last year and this year is look at the green space, try and plan some things out, come up with a menu of ideas to present to council, try and do as much work as possible so that they have actual dollars involved and know, that they can sign a dotted line after a vote and hopefully we can get things working. So all of this is to say, we like the area across the street from the basketball court. We like it for a shelter. It would allow folks from the playground to come over and have lunch, from basketball or wherever they may be. Birthday parties, things like that could be held there. And so we're trying to get something more solid in theory so that we can present it to council.
Something that holds like.
With more garbage cans than people to empty, because anytime you build a shelter,
Yes.
stuff gets dumped.
They won't throw them away over at the basketball court, so we've got, I think, 3 trash cans over there now, so yeah, I think what we would do is put one on every single corner of the shelter. Eventually, a bottle will end up in a trash can, is our hope. We're not holding our breath.
Can I bring up another point? When I was calling around about those, one of the questions that was asked was drainage.
Yes,
So gutters and downspouts, are we going to just splash it onto grade or tie it into the existing storm?
Right now, it's gonna be working with them and finding out exactly what we wanna do, how it's gonna affect
Okay.
everything, whether or not we need to call in the engineer to figure out if there's something that we need to do, because yes, there is a house right on the other side of it. So we don't wanna do anything that's going to potentially mess up their property. So we're putting some big slab of concrete, there's a chance of that, so. So no, have no idea exactly what we're gonna do with it.
So, yeah, this is nice to actually have at least
Exactly.
someone who's responded with some
Compared to
actual
$60,000 and
quotes.
$80,000.
Yeah.
And that's under the bid, even with, needing to do certain things, that's gonna be under the bid threshold.
Cool, we'll give Eric a few minutes to
Yes.
And it
get
does
things
have
passed
gutters,
out and take a deep breath.
5-inch gutters,
and
like
then
3/4 inch.
Oh,
Yeah, so gutters and downspouts are
Downspouts.
part of it.
okay, but we'd have to
So we
figure
did get
out.
a second quote
Nope,
today, very
I'm
last
seeing it.
minute, very last minute.
Good.
I think it was for 4085 all in.
So we have two under 50.
Yes, we do.
Beautiful.
Yes, we do.
No, I haven't seen it yet, I just wanted them to see that there's options. So what we'll do is put all those together, that one and the one that just came in, and then shoot that to everybody, just so everybody can see it.
Oh, three-sided? What?
Can't project that there,
What?
the picture.
Oh, this is for, what is this? This is
For the variance of one hearing.
Okay, this is for the variance. But then if you wanna see the stuff for the structure, you can see that.
Yeah.
Just goes around.
I already gave him mine. Someone else.
Okay, like I said, we'll give Eric a minute to catch his breath, and then,
A little tight this evening, on time.
we'll see if we can't do, an amphitheater update.
Here, do you wanna take that? I'll get
Oh,
it.
I was on there for the shelter update, good. We just skipped that part. As soon as Eric gets ready, we're gonna go straight back to the variance. Which is, you wanna just call out this photo record.
We have variance, V-01-2021, it's for, 5167 Lakeland Court. So Eric, do you wanna give us a
Absolutely,
overview?
I will. So, the applicants are Joby White and Watsana Pitaya. Are you guys both here tonight? There you are in the back, hiding from you there. Okay, saw you. I met with the applicants a few weeks back, kind of talked them through what they would need and stuff. And they submitted their application in a timely manner, which is why we advertise and you have it in front of you today. And then, once you make your recommendation to council, council is, we already advertised a public hearing, so council will hear it at the upcoming meeting, the next upcoming meeting. So, which helps them out because I think you'll find it's from staff standpoint, I think it's a nice addition, an alteration to the existing structure, which as many of you know, has been there in a dilapidated condition for many, many years. So we're very happy to see under the current housing environment that the applicant stepped in, bought it successfully at auction, and then proceeded with a number of plans for it. Obviously, we don't, at this point, the elevations are included with the application, that's what the applicant submitted, we don't need to, I think they add to the, applicant's argument for their variances, because they're obviously doing some nice things with it. We ourselves are not an architectural body, so we won't necessarily review them, but I think they're there to kind of say, look, they're putting some good money into the structure, they're making some changes, and they want to improve the neighborhood overall. Handed you two copies. One is the survey, this copy here. So this is where surveyor did it mostly, and what's important in this one is that it kind of, sets the lot lines, most importantly sets the building line. Now, in this particular plat with the old section off Lakeland there, building line is 30 feet back from the right-of-way. This is a tight lot, very small. The existing building and plot for that matter were done and predated the existing zoning, which is an R3, so this was done prior to 1989's adoption of the R3 code. This particular sheet here, in which I kind of scribbled on it, so you'll see if you can read my writing, I'll go through them. You have there's 4 variances that they'll need in order to construct the house as they've proposed. Also to clean up the legal non-conforming condition of the lot. So the lot, and I'll just kind of work through those. The lot itself is a 9,000 and some change lot, so it is under the required R3 code of 10,000, where lots need to be 10,000 square feet. Now, that's a legal non-conforming condition, but since we're here in front of the, committee and for council for variances, we're gonna clean up everything that we find in this case as they proceed forward. So that will need a variance for its current condition. Then the structure itself has 3 variances required in order so that it can actually be constructed. 2 of those are setbacks. The rear setback needs to be set to 8 feet. Now again, the house was already in a legal non-conforming condition at 8 feet. They're going to extend the back line, in this case, evenly across at 8 feet. They're not asking for more than it's already there. Normally it would be 25% of roughly from the building line, 50 feet off the 80, so that would be give or take right around,
20 feet.
yeah, 20, well, less than that, but yeah, 20, it's not 80, it's off the 50 from the building line, but, it needs to be more than 8 feet, essentially. 12 feet is where we'd roughly be at, but it's, it's not there, 12 and a half. So 8 feet for that variance. They don't need any side variances. They've kept within the R3 code allows for 15-foot total side setbacks, and that can be split. So, or I'm sorry, 18 feet, forgive me. So it could be an 8 and 10 or some derivation thereof in which it's no less than 8 feet on any one side. They easily exceed that at 15 feet on the side that's on our lake side of the property, and then are more than 20 feet on the other side. The other very important one has to do with the building setback line itself. So as part of their construction plans, they're going to extend the garage forward in order to get full use out of the lot. That is going to require them to to come forward half the way to the street. So where the building setback is then 15 foot off the right of way versus the required 30 feet. And finally, lot coverage, again, small lot anyways, but as they've noted on that, the lot coverage here is 36.5%. The lot coverage in R3 district is 30%. So they would need a variance to go to 36.5% as noted on their site plan. That's what I have. The applicants are here to speak to their plan, if you'd like to hear from them.
Sure. Do you guys wanna present it all, or do you want us to ask you questions? What would make you guys more comfortable?
Go ahead and ask some questions. If
Would step to the podium, please. Yes.
Yeah, so to present, we have 2 different surveys that we had done. And then we actually found all the pins. There was one that had to be put in. And then we streamlined it. Eric came out, took a look at it. What we're feeling like we're doing is asking something that's pretty reasonable. We want to stay with the mid-century modern, which is very low slope. It's got a very slight pitch to the roofs. It uses a rubberized roof system. Can't even use any sort of 3-tab or any other pitched roof like this. So for that, we're thinking, to stay with the original style. We shouldn't encroach on any shadows, anything else, but these lot lines, we have to work with what we've got. So over here we have some drawings, and we've got the pretty one on the front. We've got these elevations, which are, and this is more or less what we're going to do. We have some interior, we're still working on the plans to submit. As you always want to make more adjustments, where the refrigerator is going to go, or we're going to get some shelves in here and there. But the actual exterior perimeter, this is where it's going, as we propose it. So, yeah, let me know what your questions are.
Sure. I guess let me just ask, have you talked to the folks who live behind you?
Yeah, but they just sold their house.
Okay.
Are you the buyers?
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you.
Well, there we have it. So I know there is a fence between you guys. Do you guys have strong feelings?
I think we weren't totally sure what the plans were, but We just don't want the roof line to cast a shadow, because I mean, it's very close to the fence, and so we just don't want it to cast a shadow and then, I mean, pretty much just wipe out the plants and the trees that we have all right there. Because there is a ton of plants, and there's a huge magnolia tree like right behind the fence, and so we know the roof line comes up for part of it, but then like on your photo, like the back of the house, so like this end of the house.
The roof line's not extending beyond where it already is, correct? I mean, the top of the pitch, it wouldn't be, it just comes down though, it wouldn't extend beyond its high point of the pitch itself, so.
Okay.
I mean, I'll let him explain it, but from
Sure.
my observation, you know, you gotta have your slope to the roof, and it's not extending beyond the 8 foot that's already there. Shouldn't have any shadows above that fence.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to understand what it's gonna look like, but we just didn't want it to.
Do you
So,
get,
this is the one that you're concerned about, is that right? So that part, we will,
Right there, right?
yeah, so
Yeah.
from this house to over there, we will pitch down, and then this will be all the way down that deep. You know, this is the wall, and this on that. And then, like you said, there's a ton of magnolia trees and other brush that, because it really was, I mean, it's a raccoon infested. I know that it's very famous. I know that everybody's like downplaying. This is the worst house in the whole place. So we have cleaned it up, but we have left that line with the fence and all the other, because we were waiting for the new hires.
We
See,
just
that
got
as good neighbors were like, okay, let's set out a plan, because it's not gonna look, it looked bad. You know, it was more or less. We, thank you. And you guys had to look over it. Yeah, so we were waiting to meet you to decide on like how we should manage this. But that's a different issue than the actual line. We designed this to have the absolute lowest possible roof lines. Because the other thing is that if we can't get like the coverage variance, 30 to 35, our only choice is to go up, which is,
Yeah.
and for sure, we don't want to do that. This is,
Right.
you know, it's a beautiful little ranch.
Right.
so can I, do you guys, does the house as it is cast shadows on?
So today was our first day.
Oh.
We're there currently, so
welcome.
we haven't even fully moved in, so
Okay.
I don't know completely. I just know that the previous owners were really concerned about that, and then they told us about this meeting and told
Okay.
us.
I think they were concerned it was gonna go higher.
Yeah,
And actually, that structure that Joby's talking about there, it does not go higher. Matter of fact, I think your house might be higher than that one.
I think they.
I live across the
yeah, they
street.
already
I live right
had
across the
it.
street.
Alright. I think what they were concerned, at least how they explained it to us, is that the back wall would be extended, so then the roof would be extended, which is over the fence. At least that's what was explained to us, but.
So the applicant brings up a very good point. If he doesn't get his variances, it's perfectly legal on the existing footprint as it exists to go higher. He doesn't have to exceed 35 feet, and there's no variance required. He can go get his building permits. He can build it up to the requirement for the architect, you know, says, and
Sure.
would be allowed by code. So by approving the variances, he'll keep that roof low.
So I live across the street from Joby's new lot, and I've probably been there over 26 years. And when I moved in there, Todd and his wife, lovely wife there, were there, but that place has always been a dump. It looks kind of like what was down, except he had a van that he stored crap in, and he just moved back and forth without a license forever. Weeds everywhere, and I think when they emptied the building itself, they pulled out 26 dumpsters full of stuff because he was a pack rat. The yard was full of all kinds of stuff. They pulled about 18 raccoons that were dead. Some of them were alive out of his roof when they came to fix it. He was still kind of there on and off, but he hasn't lived there 10 years.
Right.
So we've had to look at that forever. So I was telling Joe, he was telling me about what he was doing. I said, look, if I see a garage here, or it's 10 feet closer to the street, I really don't care. I'm sure it's gonna look better than what was there. My only thing that I said to him was, hey, I kind of like having the neighbors, whoever, people over, could park right at the end of the street. He said he wasn't obstruct those parking spots where you kind of park near the bushes at the end of the road. That's cool. Now, I can see I think that you should give them that variance. I can see why going down just a regular road, you wouldn't want to do that, because you'd have people build garages in and out. But this is kind of unique, it's at the end of the road. And really, whatever he built, it already looks better now than it belonged. So,
Oh, I agree.
No, I mean, and-
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I looked at all this on paper and I said absolutely not.
Sure.
And then this afternoon I drove over there and, you know, pulled into the street and said, oh, this is not what I had in my brain. Mainly because there's nothing to the far end, that no one's going to build a house next door to you on that side. And so you're not obstructing anybody's view of the street or anything like that.
Actually, I started to clean up some of my limbs so I can see across the street now that the trash is gone.
That's great.
And plus, you had a lot of people that go down there and park and have to run them off, and their kids wanna drink, and it's like, it's better to have someone live there, right, than an abandoned house, it kinda sucks.
And it's been a long time.
Long.
Long.
Beth, do you have any questions?
Well, I went through and reviewed all the information, and I was concerned about that on the appeal, that the variances that were being asked for were really not the variances that I saw that were needed, but it
Correct.
sounds like
My
that
variance
that's.
summary is what he needs. Don't worry about the applicant made those and put those in there, and that's fine. That's the applicant's request without full staff review. So my
So is-
variance list
So
of
is this
four.
the variance list here?
Yeah, my list, and I'll go through it again if you like, but my list of four is what you need to make this happen. Rear setback, building setback variance, coverage variance, and to clean it all up, lot size variance. 4 variances.
Front, back, rear, coverage. Okay. Okay. Well, that was really, I mean, I didn't really have a problem with what was being done, other than the paperwork and what was being presented really wasn't adding up to what was on the drawings and needing done. So it sounds like that's gonna be cleaned up and resubmitted, is that,
No,
no?
these are the variances as staff has listed them. These are the ones that you vote on and recommend to council.
Okay.
These are the ones that council will then act upon once the recommendation's in front of them.
Okay. All right, nope, that's all.
Eddie?
Yeah, so I don't know who answers, if it's Eric or not, but who owns over here?
That's us.
So the village owns this?
That's the lake, it just drops
Okay.
off into the lake. You have a nice
Okay.
steep drop right there. He's directly across on the other side over there.
In the winter, we can see it,
Yeah,
Got it.
it's Lee's fault.
unfortunately.
Yeah, now it'd be nice.
There was a couple dumpsters of trash that were along the lake that is now gone.
We'll be
So you should be able to see it
happy to
better.
see it now.
Nice.
These are great.
Very good question.
No, I'm thrilled. I used to get the complaints, so I'm good.
Joey, is there, do you have a fence between your new neighbors from there?
Yes, and it's very likely that it's yours. Now, they were abusing the fence before, they had stuff stacked up against it, so we've removed all of that. There were like old glass doors and stuff that were beginning to rot the fence.
Oh, no.
And, you know, and they were heavy, so they were like pushing against the fence.
Yeah.
So we cleaned up, but we haven't taken out any bushes or anything. You know, we trimmed them up within reason,
Okay.
but we will be working with you guys to set up. It really looks like you guys, like we need to, it was really overgrown, like a fortress to keep the disgusting part of our side for all those years.
Yeah,
I mean, we ran off a raccoon, there was,
yeah.
he was angry.
I didn't know who that was, I was gonna say you're gonna replace that fence, cause it's kinda old.
Actually, no, actually.
Is that right?
The fence between the,
Yeah.
no,
That's
you're,
nice in between our houses.
Okay.
yeah, it's really quite new, and then somehow, they had stacked stuff against it, and we.
Maybe that's why it looks so bad, all the stuff stacked up on it, yeah.
Yeah, and there was that old shed which is non-compliant, which, you'll see in this survey here, is in the setback. So that one, of course, was demoed inside that was one of the first things that we wanted to do in that area, because, there could have been anything in there. And we wanted to get it before wildlife moved in, you know. I'm not quite sure of what comes out, but people have turtles or something, and we're like, if the turtles move in, we want to get it first before we have to let them stay while they have babies.
Hi. Do you have anything you'd like to
Yeah,
ask? I know you're trying to catch up.
I think I'm
think
I
you're
think I'm
familiar
here
with
too-
it.
I think I'm here too late to, I mean, I did look it over, but I'm sure you guys have it taken care of.
I'm good.
You good?
Thank you, though.
Okay, so now we would vote
Is there anyone else?
does anybody else have anything
Public comment.
they'd like to add?
No, my neighbor Janet, who's the other one would look at his house, she likes it too.
Okay,
She's not here.
that's good to
Usually when
know.
they're not here, that's a good,
That's the.
Yeah,
that's the good thing. So we appreciate you coming, that you are happy that.
She was, I spoke with her today, I'm guessing y'all are in the Leals, or?
Yes,
Okay, that was kind of her thing, as long as the Leals were happy, but no, they're not there, so.
Here we are.
Yeah, I think that was what.
Yeah, I think as long as the, like you're saying, the roof goes down to 8 feet, it like slopes down, that sounds like it'll be a non-issue. That was the thing that we were most concerned about, was it going up higher, or coming like right up against the fence so that it was casting a shadow.
So it won't come, the structure won't come any closer than the closest part of it is now.
Correct. And the roof doesn't need to be varied because they have up to 35 feet, so by
Right.
giving them the other variances, they will keep it at where it's at.
Right.
And it's sloping, correct?
If I can ask, or assert something, you can tell me if I'm wrong, the proposed new roof isn't going to be any higher
Correct.
than any of the existing roof.
Correct.
Alright, so we are not talking about any longer a shadow, because it's neither getting closer than the existing closest point, nor getting higher than the existing highest point. So there is no additional shadow encroachment, because it's not bigger in those rooms.
Well, it will be getting closer, right?
But not closer than its current closest point, right? So it's, their closest point is already 8 feet.
Yeah.
So it's not extending beyond that.
You can see on the shadow point here, they're just going to go, there's already a point where the roof line comes down, that wall there, it's 8 feet, they're just gonna go across, and it goes down, and it won't be any higher than the highest point of the roof.
Right, yeah,
Pitch.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So as long as this
Yep.
floor goes down to 8
Correct.
feet, so it's not.
Correct.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, I understand.
Okay,
Well, it's 8 feet plus the actual roof rating.
Yeah.
Which is 12, so not 12 inches, so it's 9 feet from the current ground.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely close, it's hard to imagine what that's gonna do to the backyard since
yeah,
we just moved in,
Right.
it's like, but.
Well, we've got a lot of big trees, even in my house across the street from his, when you track the sun, it goes by the trees, there's no house that's gonna block it, what trees do. I mean, there's buku houses down the road that are taller, and the trees are taller, you won't ever get a shadow from this house.
yeah, you're gonna be okay.
Yeah, this is what we wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Great.
So,
So do we have to go one by one, or can we approve them as a block?
no,
Vote
you,
on
yeah,
them
you
as a
should,
block, sorry.
yes, so you can approve, we can go through it again, the list officially for the record, but you can approve it as staff recommended for the 4 variances as required, because that's your recommendation. The council actually has to go through it individually, I believe, and go through that. For you, you're just making a recommendation based on staff's 4 variances that council approve, unless you have other conditions that you want to add, which I don't hear any at this time.
Does anybody have other conditions they'd like to add? Okay, is there a motion to approve them as a,
Move to approve as submitted.
okay, a second?
Second?
Okay, in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same? Okay,
Next step is just council, and they will see you there.
Which is Monday night, correct?
That's right, it comes up here in 5 days,
Okay.
so.
Amazing.
Nothing is ever that fast, so don't expect anything. Is that pretty accurate, everybody?
Yes.
thanks, Ed, we're gonna, we've got a few more things to talk about, you're more than welcome to stick around, but thanks for coming, welcome to the village.
For everybody.
To all our new neighbors. Thanks for being here, to all of our old neighbors, longtime neighbors, longtime neighbors.
Yeah, oh yeah, sure, I'll take it back for you, you can keep it if you want, absolutely, keep it.
I have a friend. Hello, Lily. Oh my gosh. Lily.
Joey.
Nice to meet you.
It's the same.
Hi.
So, we did shelter update?
We did a shelter update. we'll give a minute or two to clear out and then,
Sam, second?
Is it, the hearing will start at 6:30. If you wanna come for the public hearing and action
Don't
by
let me
council,
forget that.
6:30.
6:30,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I just wanted to make sure, no, it's not official about
You'll get, there'll be another notice sent out.
it. Gotcha.
So you'll see another postcard. I assume you got the first one.
That'll need to go out tomorrow, won't it?
They can send it out tomorrow or Wednesday, whichever you wanna do.
Tomorrow
This is
is
Thursday, sorry, I'm confused.
Thursday,
You're going
yeah,
out
we
today, but
have to
you,
get it out tomorrow.
that's right, tomorrow, yes. So you have to, she's got the list already from this.
Beautiful. She'll let me forget to tell, or you won't be here, so
I will
I'll
not.
have to remember to tell her something postcards tomorrow.
Yep,
Perfect.
cool.
okay, so if we remember, the last meeting we had, we took a walk and we looked at pickleball and we looked at the amphitheater. Eric's got some numbers, I think, some more information on the amphitheater anyway.
Do.
So if you'd like to.
Sure,
hit
and
us to that.
I left, as I ran out of my house, I left my little Excel spreadsheet on the thing, but I'll send it around in an email. But basically, our estimate based on some good numbers, and I'll just run through them, is roughly 60,500 at the moment. A couple placeholder items, and I'll get to those, but to start with, tree removal is roughly $2,000 or less. That's $2,000's a conservative number, because as we know, we're gonna preserve the large tree and mostly just clear out the smaller trees that are actually growing out of where the decking and everything will go specifically. Existing stonework rehab, we know that's just, I put $7,000 in here, it runs about 6,700, so I'm including just a little bit of an increase, should there be an increase. Decking materials to get Trex decking, which is just our estimate, I'm assuming we don't want to pour concrete, but that's also possible. Trex decking for 1,000 square foot deck is 22,500. Labor for Trex decking installation will be 15,000, roughly speaking. Railing fencing, as we know, we talked about where we had some areas that needed railing fencing against the ravine. Roughly, I just put in $7,000 for that. That'll have to get properly quoted once we go out there for full bidding. Electric right now, based on our needs out there, is roughly $7,000. So, but of course, that one's also dynamic because we may add this or add that. So that's roughly where we're at. So 60,500, which is still nice and shy of what we wanted to do.
So for the folks joining us, we have received a grant from the state of Ohio for $100,000 to improve upon the existing amphitheater here at the other end. There
Where's
is,
the amphitheater?
exactly.
If you walked over the dam,
So if you were to walk the path, you would round the lake and you would look down to your
Oh,
left.
you mean off the causeway?
Yes.
Down
Down.
the ditch?
Yes.
Yeah, there's some concrete there.
it's not
Yes,
concrete.
they-
You're actually gonna build
It's
something?
actually,
used
no,
to
it's
be-
actually old stone. It's in
Oh, I know
the
it was,
amphitheater.
yeah.
And so we, using these state funds with, there is a requirement for some match dollars from the village. If council is in agreement, the thought is to rehab that, not rebuild it, and we're not talking about, making Madison Square Garden, but to make a small amphitheater that could be used for a family movie night, hang a projector and have movies down there for small performances, and things like that to serve the community. So being that this is almost free money from the state, we want
It's
to
on
make
the
sure
map
that we
behind you, isn't it? Right up there with the causeway.
It's over to the right there, yeah.
See the lake, and it should
The
be to the right,
specific,
that
the
straight
specific
line,
location is
probably.
right
Yes.
here, right where this giant tree is growing out of it, but it's right here, but down
Is
and
that
down.
close to the road? I thought it was a little bit farther
Yeah,
towards the dam.
Have a nice evening, go check it out on the way back, so. But it's
The
there.
idea is for,
I never saw much that was left of it to actually rebuild, but I got it.
And if you're wearing long pants, so if you wanted to walk down in there, because we did that at the last meeting, and there's actually more than you would think, and we think at this point we could probably mow it and put some decking up and make sure that the stone's in good shape and run electric to it, and have folks take a picnic blanket and lay it out on the slope. So that's what we're discussing and evaluating now. Are there things that are missing from this quote? Is there anything that, I like the thought of doing Trex.
Yeah, it'll be non-maintenance and last a very long time, so that's the purpose.
And yeah, I like that, I think, over concrete, because the when it comes time for repair, it's probably gonna be better off doing
Yeah,
plastic decking as opposed to
I would agree.
concrete. Any thoughts? Does electric include some lighting?
Not the lights itself, the wiring, outlets, things of that nature. I mean, the projector's obviously not included in that,
Right.
you know, those kind of equipment pieces will still have to be quoted out. But again, you can add anywhere between 5 and 10 grand for, you know, a good projector and lighting system down there. I assume most of our lighting's gonna be minor and mostly around the edging of the, you know, some type of outdoor lighting for safety purposes.
Yeah.
You know, in that area. That's about it.
Okay. Any questions?
Can you go over the financing of it?
Sure. Tree removal is roughly 2 grand or less. What,
I
sorry,
mean, I'm sorry, the grant part of it.
which, what about the grant part?
So there's,
100 grand.
$100,000 awarded from the state.
Yep.
It's bonded money, so it's not your tax dollars, it's bonds. And the requirement is, and this is something that Eric, I want us to double and triple check on, because I'm not sure how it goes through, what are we, cultural facilities?
It's a, yeah.
But I know how it goes through higher ed, and I wanna make sure that we're, and so we are eligible for $100,000 with a 50% match.
Which includes in kind.
Right.
So it's really not almost free money, we have to put up 50,000.
No, well, it depends what you want. If you want 50 grand, you put up 50 grand. We put up 100 grand, we get 100 grand. It's up to 100 grand.
We don't have to spend the full 100, so
Yeah.
if we spend 50 and we put in 25.
Yeah.
Yes, at 50%.
It's a 50% match, but that
Match.
includes in kind. So you gotta understand that we can, there's things that we do that say, hey, I'm putting in this money, this time, I mean, all this time that we put into it up to this point is reimbursable cost and it's in kind stuff, right? So the hours and time for different professionals, you know, whoever that may be, myself, the mayor as an example, you know, that counts. Whether it's $5,000 or $10,000 worth of time, that counts.
Mowing it all the first time.
Yep, we have some labor, we have lots of little things involved, which we'll tally up and account for at the time when we need to do the, you know, fill in the final details for the application.
And so, yeah, it will ultimately all be up to council to decide, you know, is the amount to chip in now worth the money that comes along with it for the long-term benefit? So all we're trying to do is, you know, put it in the best possible situation to be long-lasting and cost-effective.
And so the council they could specify how much according to what information you give them.
Yep. Or they could flat out say no, and we would end up, you know, just not using those funds. Which
Which be unfortunate.
Which-
Can they
which
use it
would-
elsewhere, or is it
No.
earmarked?
No,
This is-
it's
yeah,
been a
this
lot
is
of, this is one Donna
specifically for-
did specifically, and she got that ball rolling. And it's aimed for, since it's a cultural type thing, I did one in Pataskala too, and it was for their theater rebuild. So it's very specifically tied to a structure or project
and
that's
and-
cultural in nature.
yeah, speaking politically, the reality is that if we
Pass.
can do something and use these funds, then we can go back to the legislature and say, thank you so much for your help, check out this other great idea we have, to try and find something else to do. If we let these funds lapse without spending them, we will not have,
They'll be like,
we won't have a chance to get more funds from this legislature, from our state senator and our state representative until they are
Yeah,
not elected or term limited out.
yeah.
Because they both, being in the minority party, they both did stick their neck out pretty hard to try and get some funds for their district. So, anything missing from what we think is here?
There's, well, so no water down there, like pump or anything.
Does it?
Did we anticipate the need for water somewhere? Not that I'm
I
aware
mean,
of.
later on for restrooms or something along that line, or?
Oh, I don't know, just seems like anytime anything is put anywhere, somebody wants water.
I mean, I don't
To
think that's a
hose
hard
something
thing to
off
do.
nearby. That's all. And the other thing I would, well, true, go get a bucket of water, throw it. Oh,
Yeah, I think we're close enough to right here that restrooms probably aren't
Not this time, perhaps the next money we ask for.
Right,
we can
right.
Bring that back in.
So they wouldn't be
Add the
critical
project.
this time around.
Yeah.
So do we have to do anything to be ADA compliant, like a ramp or anything
We're
like
going to
that?
have to talk to a qualified architect on that. My guess is that no, because it's already an existing condition, right? As far as the slope and everything, we're not altering the slope coming down there. There is access for people to watch from the pathway, which is ADA accessible up at the top. But we'll get a qualified answer at the time, you know.
But you need ADA access onto the stage.
That is a possibility, yes.
And it's a percentage, it's not whether it's existing or not, it's a percentage of how much you're spending.
This is one of those special possible exemption cases that we go through, so we'll have a qualified architect examine that at the time and determine that need. If it's needed, then we'll add it into the project. So,
Yeah, and I mean, I would think that we could put a ramp onto the stage
So what
for
do you do?
simple ease of use for everyone.
I'm not so worried about the ramp onto the stage, but I'm
Yes,
more
like
worried about getting down
to
to
the,
it.
yeah, cause
Yeah.
I was like thinking, how do you even get equipment
That's-
there?
and
Like,
that's the point
go
that-
through the swamp,
There's.
roll it down the hill?
As you know, that there's a hillside access that we utilize to go down and around without adding a huge amount of cost to the project. We're not doing a whole bunch of stuff with like a complete access to the amphitheater construction, right? So again, this is a question that has to be answered. I don't think, my thought from experience is that because we're just handling the stage and we are not, it existed there at one time, right? So we are rehabbing the stage area to its previous existence. We are not doing anything with the hillside, right? So it's a question of whether or not if we,
Or anything?
yeah, if we have to add it to the stage, it's kind of silly. Maybe it's a requirement, maybe it gets exempted, because we're not going to have to be forced to change the hillside because we're doing no material work on that hillside at all, right? And so the access at this time for unless council and this body recommends different, because then we're getting into a whole different thing. I mean, I could see to make that hillside completely accessible, you're looking at 30,000 easy, right? To make that hillside accessible all the way down in some format. So at the end of the day, not my decision, but I would say if we're working in phases and steps, we work with what we have, go back for more money at some point, we'd have to have it redesigned, and handled differently on the next round. It'd be expensive.
At one point, we were talking about changing the direction of the stage as well. Is that still on the table?
That was asked, and I believe.
Yeah, we went out at the last meeting and stood on it. And I think the agreement was when we were all standing on it and looking around that I think it's situated just fine.
Yeah, because it still points to you've got the riprap rocks on the one side, which obviously are not usable from a seating standpoint. But there is a wide area. We have to put railing along that back so people don't go careening over the ravine area, right? We got to continue the fence down from a safety standpoint. But there's a nice slope from the hillside where people can sit, and then of course people can actually bring their chairs out. They can sit at the top of the pathway itself, right? And you can watch the performance and the movies from that angle as well, where it's currently situated, which is actually better. If we turned it, there would be less access from the top of the slope. So, and it saves $20,000 not to move the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, before I go down the path of designing that thing and throwing up the grant money, I would certainly look at the ADA compliance of actually getting to the theater, because that's not like an existing thing that we're utilizing now. It's gonna run down. It's not really a theater or, an amphitheater. And although the top path is ADA accessible, they're probably not gonna let you go down the side that has a dam on it, so you're gonna have to probably provide ADA compliance to get down to that.
We will have that answered by a qualified professional.
Right, before you go down the path of designing that.
But
Yeah,
even.
we're not designing it, so.
I'm gonna say that even if it qualified professional or not, there's a bigger conversation about equity. And just like who your residents are and why are you, like, it's, whether it's law or not, it's like the right thing to do, to create it in such a way that you can have people wheelchair or have mobility issues to be able to get to it. That's just, that's just a viewpoint that I have with, like anything, whether it's the law or not, it's the right thing to do to allow more people accessibility, to have that amphitheater be accessible for them.
That's a question for the recommendation of the body to the.
Get around
Yes.
things. That's Eric's, goal, I think, is to see how we can
get around, certain requirements.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's a matter of getting
Yeah, it's not
around
a
certain
goal.
requirements.
The goal is to get a project finished within a certain funding pattern that's approvable. At the end of the day, since you sit on council, it's your guys' call as to whether or not you spend more money to make the projects happen in any way, shape, or form. I'm more than happy to spend 30, 40, 50,000 more of the village's money and guide that project to fruition, if that's what the council at the end of the day decides, right? We have a base budget for proceeding in a particular phase. If people want to add more money and project scope to the work, by all means, it's good. We can either do it in phases, we can do it all at once, it's not a problem. You have up to 100 grand. Just gotta
We are
match.
going to be presenting to council a menu that I keep talking about of here are the things that we think we could do, and would you like to do them? Can we pursue two paths from here? One being obviously find out what the legal requirements are, and then two, get a quote on what it would take to, if, I'm sure that there's somebody who's able to find out, and I don't know if it's, a path from another direction as opposed to down the hill, even if it came, around and, from the back. Can we get a quote on what it would cost to do that?
We can get a
And
ballpark.
then that, we now have another item on the menu that we can present to council.
I think there was a question.
Ballpark without going out there and determining.
I agree, it's a lot more than that, but we can get a general ballpark because we won't, much like the building, until you bid it out, you won't know the final cost of that kind of site work. But we can get a qualified professional look at it, we can answer the legal question, and we can get a ballpark idea. I mean,
Right.
whether it's 30 or 40 grand, 20 grand, doesn't matter, we can get an idea and start with that.
And we know,
Exactly.
and here's the thing that we all know, it's gonna be drastically more. So at the end of the day, what does everybody wanna do?
Well, and so if we find out that it's already drastically more, then we can start looking at a phase two and come back for, try and get more state funding to make the facility fully ADA compliant.
And then you
It's,
decide, is this project worth it in the eyes of the majority of the people? Because while I am not in disagreement that we wanna make sure that as many people can use it, I mean, we have a basketball court that 10% of the village uses, I mean, we have a park that 10% of the, so not everything is for everybody type thing, and I don't wanna exclude people to certain things, but if we do the best of our ability to make it as he was mentioning, the benches at the top, or, literally an entire line of benches all the way across the top, or, to make it as 99.9% usable, to the majority of the people. I'm not, again, I don't know, and council may say absolutely not. I think having all of the options in front of everybody, can you even make that hill? Can you even, just with the incline, I don't think there's anything that you're gonna do.
We will have certain restrictions
Yeah.
with the dam is what we can do
So,
on
yeah,
it too.
so-
So we're gonna have certain interesting
Right.
engineering feats to overcome, which, you can overcome any engineering feat, but it costs money.
Yeah, so more information won't hurt.
It will not.
Something to add?
I just had a quick question, I think it's a great idea to put that little theater apartments with. So if you have to have ADA compliance, I think you noted that you probably want them coming down the other way, because the pathway is a little bit less steep.
Right.
And he's probably right, you can't probably go down this dam, but, if it has to be ADA compliant, do you have to put bathrooms down there? And then where are people gonna park?
It's a different thing.
The theory behind this is that these are all questions that we've kind of gone back and forth. The theory behind this is it's just something very small that most people would just walk to. So again, you
From
start
the
talking
existing
about,
parking.
yeah, I mean, it's,
We have a lot of people that drive into the basketball courts.
oh, we absolutely do.
That, 'cause
Well, I live on Jordan.
Right, if you're all,
Yeah, so for me, I would have to park here and walk over.
right, so you got all the houses there, and now you're parking in the other houses, if you're going down like that.
Depending on if it was in the evening, that entire parking lot right here is empty. So you do have like the 15 parking spots, I don't know exactly how many, but that honestly, you would have that. Other than that, you're gonna be parking on the street.
New building will be expanding some
That's true
parking
too.
too.
With the new building, we would have more spots.
And yeah, we looked at various sizes and what's going on around us and things like that for, the actual size of the stage.
You see the kids rolling down the hill. Right until it hit the rocks. Is there increased liability now, or that's covered by your insurance for the village, right?
It would be insurance, I mean, people, you roll down at your own risk, so, I mean, we don't recommend that. I'm sure we can always put up another sign, whatever the insurance guy says, put up a sign.
But yeah, I mean, the thought is for this to be for Minerva Park, to not make something so large that we're bringing, you know, it's not going to be Shakespeare in the Park, we're not gonna bring in, 20,000 people over a season.
Well, I was gonna say, you could take that shelter by the basketball court, you're gonna build a bigger amphitheater.
Yeah, that's what I was
Well, and
expand funding into cultural over to the shelter house project.
But you were paying for that outright, right? You weren't, that wasn't a thing.
that would be, I mean, yeah, if council wants to.
You might wanna put a
But
fence
this,
between the homeowner and that shelter though.
Have discussed that.
We've
Yeah.
discussed it.
Uh,
We've also discussed just putting a line of trees, we've discussed, just so it's not a plastic fence or something along
Right.
those lines that we have to maintain and all of that, maybe we just do some sort of pine trees. We've discussed a couple different things. Council may say no to the shelter. I mean,
Gotcha.
at this point, this is just a body that, these are the ideas and these are the thoughts that we've come up with. And
Right.
I'm gonna be honest, not everybody I think is gung ho on certain things, even in this particular body. So I think these are all, you know, we have pickleball on here, I couldn't even tell you, I still don't know how to play pickleball. I'm definitely not against it whatsoever, but you know, it's just.
Where's that one going?
By the pool.
By the pool.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, let's do that.
Exactly. So, you know, I think the other thing that this body is really trying to do is do a little bit more of something for everybody. Not everything is for everybody. We want as many people to be able to get included in certain things, but again, I always said I would never rent this building, and I actually had Taylor's graduation party here, even in the condition it was in. So, I mean, who knows?
And I will add that we have, you know, it seems like we're starting to spend a bunch of money, it's coming from the park grant fund.
Correct.
From the MI development, each homeowner, I think, kicked in $500
Correct.
into a park grant fund.
Over 100 grand.
So this isn't coming out of the general fund.
Right.
yeah, those funds are set aside to improve upon the green space, so that's what we're trying to.
I've had a lot of people say, man, you guys are talking about doing a
Does
lot of
that,
stuff.
does that fund can also go for the pool? That one, or
The
not?
Parkland Fund?
I
Yeah.
think so.
It could, you could make a stretch because it's technically
Right.
village property and it benefits the rest of the development,
But at
so,
this point, I think
sure.
we're really trying to do some things that are over in that section since it was contributed. My original thought was, I don't think that the money should, I'm just gonna say, I don't think any of that money should have been used for anything over on this side because they
Except
all.
pickleball.
Except pickleball. But, you know, and again, I can be persuaded with that because residents would use it. So just because this is the land we're putting it on, doesn't mean that it couldn't be used for that. So as long as it was benefiting, the whole point of it is to benefit.
It's really supposed to benefit the new development.
Right.
People in the new development is the wording.
Gotcha.
One thing, for the new development, what I get concerned about is the green space over there actually looks worse this year than it did when MI kept it up. I mean, we've got the green space around some of those ponds, especially like Whiteview, looks like a weed pile going all the way up. It's like, if that money was supposed to be for park and green space, the walking trails over there look like crap this year. I mean, it looks like somebody this week did go and clean out the tree beds.
We're not cutting as much grass as they were cutting.
Yeah, you have to understand that we're also getting complaints that people don't want to see a bunch of structures and they want to see, I don't wanna call it weeds, but they wanna see green space.
Reserve
Well, I want to see
space.
green space, but when I do see thistle, the honeysuckle taking over, you know, it's some of those things.
Right.
There can
that I
be some,
think-
there can be some better maintenance, and this
Yeah.
body has discussed how to handle the green space, and again, it goes, speak to council, you have a couple members here, you know, about money spent in those areas and how to manage it, and we've gone through a couple different plan sets, and you'll see, for instance, the lily pond, as we call it, is one of the first steps over there, where they are improving it. It's gonna be a year-to-year thing with how the money's allocated and how they manage it, but it'll be different than cutting it like a golf course,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, we don't want it like a golf course, but like that, the Black Sycamore one doesn't look too bad, but it's the Quiet View Vale one, I mean, that one is the one that just looks like weeds, and it's like, there were these nice tree beds that were all mulched when MI had them, and just up until yesterday, the weeds.
They actually haven't
We're-
touched those in 2 years.
Yeah.
Just so you know, MI has not touched those in 2 years. We
So-
actually just started, I hired somebody about 2 weeks ago. and
All of a sudden, I noticed yesterday, I'm like, somebody did finally
She
put
is,
it, yeah.
she is currently working on those because that's the way that they were left 2 years
Yeah.
ago with MI. So, those didn't go like that overnight. So at this point, we're starting in some of those flower beds.
Does that
seeing that done make you feel better about it?
Yeah, I was
So as long as
actually,
the beds are manicured.
yeah, the
and
beds are cleaned up, yeah, cause I was like, what happened, like, through here?
That's been kind of a question mark.
Yeah.
No,
Do we keep them, do we?
well, I'm gonna tell you, I
Not.
have given her specific ones to clean up, not all of them.
Okay.
And that is my theory behind it, because I think that there are too many to maintain. And they're out in the middle of nowhere that people really can't see,
That's the
so
way
the ones
they did-
along, yeah, some of those.
Got a ton of
Silly,
rain
yeah,
space.
yeah, some were silly. The ones closest to the path are the ones that we're starting with. And she is starting, one at a time. She's probably done 2 or 3 so far.
She was out there in the rain the other day.
It was
That's
pouring
pretty
down
bad.
rain and she had no interest in
I was
doing
like,
it.
all of a sudden, I'm like, somebody's out there cleaning this stuff, today's not the day.
No, so, I have hired somebody that is her project right now, so over the next couple weeks. So if there's certain ones that you don't see done, let us know, that you want
But
done.
I do think having the amphitheater, trying to like go forward with that, I think that is a good idea, but I do agree, figure out your ADA stuff, just to make sure it is open to everyone, because we all never know at what point in time something's gonna happen to be able to go over there, and we also know that making stuff ADA compliant then also just kind of helps the strollers. So you gotta watch, the strollers end up taking over some of that stuff.
Yeah, and I will say this, these funds from the state do have an expiration date.
That's what I was
And so
wondering, too.
there's a definite need
Yeah.
to do, better to do something than to run out of time trying to do something perfect. But, so, yes,
So now that a lot of these paths are nice and you go through new development, they're fun to walk on, what, do you have any contracted companies or cutting some of the grass?
No.
Or have you increased your staff for cutting?
You
or-
can't get, and we're all getting off topic right now, but I'll go over it just because everybody's here. No, we have one person that is currently cutting grass and one person that's doing the other. We have tried since October of last year to hire maintenance people. We have upped our pay,
Right.
several dollars an hour, and have not been successful.
Right.
And that's the easiest answer I have.
But that, I mean, I've got a lot of municipalities and public buildings and stuff, they put these bioswales in, and they look really pretty when you put them in.
Yes.
Great for stormwater, and they become a big weed pit, and, because no one's gonna wanna weed them, and then a lot of times when you go around the storm retention basins, if you're not gonna mow them all the time, then the wildflowers, whatever you're gonna call it, they make them no-mow zones, and the grass gets higher.
Yes.
But it takes a lot to mow all that,
Right.
so that's why they're, it's finding the right stuff that doesn't look like weeds, but more like flowers and low lying, that's gonna keep everything else out.
And that's one of the things that she has been working on, is some of the wildflowers and different things.
And some of them actually, they put out toxins in their roots to kind of keep other things from growing. So some of those mixes that you put out, they don't actually let some of the other stuff grow.
Right.
so if you're, when you walk down around to check out the amphitheater,
Yeah.
keep walking around and you'll head down and around and you will find yourself upon the lily pond, which has been our first improvement area that Lisa has done just a ton of work on.
It's very pretty, right?
Thank you.
Got us some grant money and we're, well on our way, spent a lot of hours digging and planting and watering and seeding.
And keep in mind, they say 3 years for this sort of meadow. So
Oh, right.
it actually looks pretty good this year, I think. There are enough annuals that are.
They look nice when you get them going, it's just that, if you're gonna keep
Exactly.
mowing, nothing's gonna grow there.
And so, yeah, I mean, and like I said, Lisa was able to do just about all of it with grant money. So what,
Right?
there is no better way, in my opinion, to, improve upon the land than to do it without spending any money.
Well, right, because otherwise you're gonna have a landscaping staff cutting grass and stuff.
Yep.
So on the amphitheater, can we work to get, a dollar amount with a scope of work put in writing in the hopes that at the next meeting, we might be able to approve it as a recommendation for council?
Yes.
And that will contain the legal funding and ADA requirements, as well as hopefully if we can get it a menu item, for ADA compliance.
Yes.
To the stage as opposed to, for a performer as opposed to for an audience member.
Yes, we'll work on that.
Okay.
Also, on those numbers, including in their design fees and permitting fees? Or how are we accounting for that?
No, because any permitting fees, design fees probably will be in the type of in-kind at this stage. Permitting fees, we're just gonna write off. I mean, there are permitting fees, right? And the county will work with us on those, and will our commercial group. So I'm not too worried about that stuff. The design professionals will have to likely be some type of in-kind that will, to get that as answers. So I'm not including the soft cost of that just yet until we see it. I mean, if they want to go full ADA, we will have to include some type of design cost, but we'll have that as part of the quote, so.
And yeah, knowing that our recommendation and probably even council's first look or two is gonna be well in advance of any kind of joint use agreement with the Cultural Facilities Commission that will have all actual numbers and things like that. And then, of course, this grant is reimbursed, right?
Correct. So we have to allocate and then spend the money and get our money back.
Right, so as long as we're doing everything within the parameters of the joint use agreement, we don't have to submit the dollars until the back end. So we've got a little bit of wiggle room as long as council's willing to wiggle. Do we have any update on pickleball?
I think that's one of the items we'll have to follow up on. I don't know, we have the quote we had last time, which was roughly, what was it, 20 grand a.
I think it was, yeah, everything that I saw.
I think the only thing we had to really decide on, and perhaps we'll just do that at the next meeting, is where you want them, right? We know the price of what installation of one will cost. If you want to do two, it's probably 40 grand, and just a matter of deciding where you want it.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's, there's also discussions about fencing and the heights and sides and things like that. I think we were pretty much all in agreement when we talked about not having it be lit, just because that creates natural hours. So yeah, we'll work to pull some more costs together, some more concrete costs maybe together, to see if we can figure out what that's looking like. And that's the.
So I saw some comment on the Facebook group about pickleball. Someone was asking about if it would be possible to put lines on the basketball court so they could multi-purpose it.
We're not going down
It's
that
going
road.
to cause some odd conflicts.
Yeah, you're not gonna send people over there and argue with the people that are playing basketball. We're not turning it into a tennis court at this point. Up until 2 weeks ago, it was pretty tame,
Yeah.
So what about tennis courts with pickleball courts on them?
We do see that as conversion.
That is more compatible, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, would that make sense to, you can have.
Tennis is very interesting because I've worked in municipalities where they have tennis courts and they get used, and then in some places they don't get used, right? And that's where you see conversions to other uses happen, right? Because pickleball is popular, so they stripe them for the pickleball. Maybe sometimes in the year it's more and less. I don't know what your appetite is for tennis players in this community.
Here's all I'm gonna say about that, and maybe I'm crazy on this, but my view of where we were talking about having the pickleball, you're gonna have an extremely tall fence for tennis, or you're gonna be whacking those cars like there's no tomorrow, and that's the last thing I want,
Other
so.
people's houses.
They fit on a thinner. The pickleball is nice because it's a slimmer. It fits on a thinner area, which I think.
And it's not a tennis ball going through somebody's window.
Yeah, tennis courts are just bigger, and you're gonna have to have a wider area for
So
them.
we just saw, I can't remember where this was, but we saw tennis courts. It was one tennis court and it had two pickleball courts within that tennis court.
Did it
Why
have
are
like
we
a
talking
6
about
foot, did
it?
it have an 8-foot fence around it, or what did it have?
You gotta have a high fence.
It was multiple courts and the fence was high. Gosh, I wish I could remember where I saw that.
They have them, and in my discussions with both tennis players and serious pickleball players, which is a thing that's new to me,
German
neither
Village.
one of them wanted to play on a court that had lines for the other one painted on it. That if you're playing competitively and seriously, it gets too confusing as to which lines are yours and which lines are theirs. That's the extent of my knowledge on.
That's a pushback on that.
Yeah, that's the extent of my knowledge on tennis and pickleball, but I asked someone who I know professionally, who's very active in the Columbus pickleball scene, if it would be an option, and he said you won't get anybody serious playing
And do we want serious people?
I think,
I mean, is it
we
just
have,
community?
we have folks in the village right now who play in serious leagues, who are, I think, leading the push for us to do this, that they want someplace that they can.
Okay, but if we do this and we have serious people, then can the people who just wanna have fun from the village play? I mean,
Yes.
will there be time for them to play?
Yeah, the thought is, especially if we put it up near the pool, that during, when the pool is open, that would be a great place for signups. That you could, and if not, you get online and you have.
So you're having sign up. I
Wait.
wasn't sure if we decided that.
And it was, like I said, it was discussed, and it's,
Some logistics have to be
it's
worked out.
if you build it, will they come?
And we had talked about
If-
having
you know,
reserve time.
We know that there's a desire for it, do we know that there's a desire for someone to be on the court 7 days a week during sunlight? If so, we'll make signups. If it, you know,
Okay.
we don't have to decide that when we're building it, in the same way that we don't have to decide who would be playing at the amphitheater and, you know, who's not allowed.
One comment, Casto Park has, I think, 6 tennis courts, they're pretty dilapidated, but, I mean, that's a short drive if we
For
want to
tennis,
kind
yeah, can see.
of push people that way. Then my other comment is, can we make sure that it's usable for events such as like wine and cheese night and other things nearby, with like operable gate or something, so it's multi-use and not just pickleball, because there's an event going on. It seemed like at the last family fun night or whatever, it's just, there's not enough hard surface there for things to happen. So I don't know if there's a way to kind of.
It would, I mean, it would be village property.
Right.
Would it be the fence that's on the pool, for like behind the baby pool, would that be, it's
No.
the other side of that? Or would
No,
the pickleball courts go?
We have to place them still, they've not been decided, we walked around there, measured out some areas.
There
trying to
was
find where it
a
worked.
thought, again, Eric's exactly right, we have a lot of figuring out to do still,
Yeah.
but, there's a spot, there's a tree line. The parking lot ends, there's some grass, and then there's a tree line.
Right.
With the pool being, well, for you over here.
Are you driving along, and there's kind of grass going this
Right.
way towards the
And
house,
so
that
the thought would
trampoline,
be,
and there's the grass going this way, on the other side of the pool fence.
It's gonna be somewhere in those.
I was gonna say, 'cause you already have a fence on one line there, you wouldn't have to build some of the fence there.
That was part of the thought too.
right. But yeah.
Pickleball's really, you're not slamming pickleballs,
Right.
I mean.
The nice thing is that
that's
there's a
not
part
right.
on the opposite side of the fence from the pool, that's a nice big open green space, and if you plopped, you know, a fenced pickleball court right in the middle of it, or even, you know, alongside, it's space where, that is used for people to just run around. And so it would fit in another area, but again, we have a lot of, and there's also north to south with the sun and how we face them, and a lot more discussion to go on, but again, if we're gonna find out it's gonna be $500,000 to put a court in, then we can stop our discussion before we get that far. Yes?
If you put in a pickleball court, since you have so many hardcore pickleballers living in your family, you're gonna put in two, so those of us who are not hardcore at this moment can play and have
Sure, so
fun.
the discussion right now is 1 or 2, we've been told probably we don't need more than 2 at this time. And then again, there would be, if the desire and demand is that high, we would have league time and recreational time, and there would be, you know, on the Minerva Park or some other website, you would come and schedule yourself a time slot. So that you could have never played the sport at all, and still have whatever a normal time slot would end up being.
Well, if you wanna learn how,
Okay.
Westerville Rec Center has the beginning all the way through advanced.
Well, and we've got it right here happening
Yeah,
at
yeah.
Hawthorne right now, which is part of the reason we wanna put some
Right.
points in.
Alright, let's get it back to this body's thing, so some of us have had long days today, so.
Alright, old business.
Is everybody done with pickleball, any more questions? Nope. Okay, so let's switch this over to old business, new business, we can do old business first, Tony, does anybody have any old business that they wanna discuss as far as planning and zoning goes?
Well, I guess the one thing I would say is that I had tried to get council to take on the chore of cleaning up code enforcement. That was rejected soundly, and it's gonna be put back in planning and zoning's lap to start identifying some of the problem areas in the code. You know, most recently, I think it was, you know, just cutting down trees. There seemed to be some confusion about that, about what the, where the village can tell people to cut trees down. But I'm giving you a heads up here, because I've been talking about, trying to clean up the code, as you are probably tired of hearing me bring it up. But this is the only body that's going to address that. And I see the agenda here, nothing about the code. So we gotta start. I keep bringing up different types of codes that need to be looked at. Let's pick one and start, trying to fix the codes. Because that's the biggest problem that I see here, is it's just poorly enforced. I think that tree, that letter, I really like to see the letter, or I can get it, it's on Facebook under Brittany Lander's post. Read that letter that was sent out to her. And, the first line of it's one that bothers me, is that it talks about how we would like to have a nice looking community. And, here's our letter saying that you're not, you're not helping our nice looking community. To me, that first line in that letter that gets sent out, it's almost like a slap in the face to some people. When you start talking about, we want to have a nice community, and here your tree is keeping us from having that nice community. And when it really, wasn't even an issue.
I'm gonna make
There's
it
two
just a
items,
simple,
there's two
yeah.
items here. One, Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
One is that what the councilman is speaking about is more to do with management of the employees. So I would say that's a discussion you can have with the mayor on the side about how that is divvied up from an administration standpoint. Code, getting back to code, it is very much within the realm of this commission's duties to review code. And then I would say if the.
So we made some progress at the last meeting and the one before, I think, on talking about signage a little bit. So we'll put that on the agenda just because we've started it, so as opposed to just dropping it off the radar. So we were gonna look at getting some sample language from what other folks are doing about commercial signage. So that will be
next one.
This is a step forward that we can take on looking at code. So we'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
The next one that I would like to talk about is the parking of boats, trailers, one boater trailer, two. The current issue that we have is we have some people that think it's okay to park multiple, and there's nothing against it. And for some people, maybe it's not an issue, but we are currently having the problem, code enforcement can't do anything about it. And the only thing that I remind we have a couple people sitting here, so I will merely say, 90%, and maybe that's not a fair number, of the code enforcement letters are due to a residential complaint. And that's all I have to say about that. So it's in the eyes of the beholder, whether it's bad or not. I'm not specifically commenting on the one Tony is talking about. I'm not going into detail. This is not the time or the place. But I just remind everybody that when there is a code enforcement concern, our code enforcement goes out and has to talk to both parties, or at least one of the parties, and take that as a serious complaint. So unfortunately, some people don't like it, but just remember that the majority, our code enforcement officer has got enough emails that come through every single day, and the majority of them that come through are from your neighbor. And that's all I have to say about that.
But just because someone complains about something doesn't mean that someone has done something wrong.
You are correct, and most of them are just courtesy letters to start with.
And that's what I think the problem is that once someone complains, then we jump to it, to try to address their concerns, but we're not really looking at the codes to see what anybody does something wrong.
That's in your opinion.
Okay,
this is a discussion.
Because what I'd really like to get into, if you want to add things to and this really, well, I guess would be code, is that we've talked about telling people they can't cut their grass in the reserves behind their house. To me, I'd like to see where in the code does it say that that those people can't cut their grass?
What?
Because here,
Are you talking about cutting their grass or cutting a reserve area?
It's our land.
I understand that, but here, can I finish, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because every week, one of my neighbors cuts the grass in our court. Lisa cuts the grass in village property. So what we have to come up with is a program or some guidelines about whether you're allowed to cut the grass. Okay, let me finish,
Go ahead.
please, let me finish.
Go ahead.
Because, you know, there's people that have a field growing behind their house, and I've just noticed one that they've cut probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 feet behind their fence into the reserve. I'm trying to understand why they're not allowed to do that.
So here,
Other than we
I'll
don't-
address it
and
real
someone
fast.
complained,
I know, that's
and
not
can
it.
I finish?
No, I think, if I may, I can address this real fast, okay?
Because you repeat yourself 14 times and some of us have really long days.
So here,
Jared, I'm
Yes, ma'am.
gonna stop because I'm just gonna say this. Everybody already knew that I wasn't even coming to this meeting. I'm gonna excuse myself.
understood,
If you guys can turn off the recorders
once you're done.
and you guys can finish.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. So as an answer to this, so a couple things. One, we can address the difference between right-of-way, right-of-way and reserve area, which is public land. So it's both cases, the village controls both of these items, right? Now, in the case of Lisa, as a good example, she has right-of-way. We actually require residents to take care of the land directly adjacent to the right-of-way. There is an argument to be made for that. It's a little unusual because she has platted right-of-way, but there's never road never went up on it. Now, it's a very different situation than a reserve area. Reserve area is public ground, right? And it's treated from a private property standpoint much in the same way that your neighbor's is. So much like you as a neighbor are not gonna go willy-nilly mowing your neighbor's property, and if he tells you to get off his ground, stop mowing my grass, that's a trespass. It is enforced, it is not a zoning code violation, it is actually a criminal code violation in that regard. And we had this situation with a gentleman, this is a case in point, who is mowing about an acre of grass out by the one pond. We informed him he was to desist from that because there's all kinds of problems with that, including liability, and he mowed over 3 of our new trees. So he owes us 3 trees at this point. It's both criminal mischief, criminal damaging, and there's a trespass that goes with it. And if he does it again, our officers are gonna cite him in the court, in both cases, to make him stop. So that stuff's over. That's criminal code, period. That's private property. When you do things like that, it's private.
So
I understand once they've been notified that they can't do it.
They can't do it, period. It's not allowed.
Right, so can I have a turn? So we've had this discussion, right? And not even gone as far into right of way versus reserve, right? We sent out the letter to say, you can't do anything on village land without talking to us, right? Previous administrations where you got permission from the mayor, and so that's how things work now. I think you and I especially, but a lot of us agree that that's not the way that they should work. There should be a more transparent system. So if you want to do anything, there's a form to fill out. The village is working on a template so that if somebody contacts the village and says, I want to mow, I want to put up a scarecrow, I want to plant a flower, we can say, here's this form, you will fill it out and you will submit it back to P&Z, and we will take a rational, reasonable look at it that would apply to everyone. So Lisa would have to fill one of those out once it's in place, even though she's, already had the mayor's agreement because there's a new plan. I thought that we had made that decision, and now we're just waiting for.
We did have a decision
For the
some time ago.
paperwork basically to come back.
Oh, I get, this is what I'm discovering right now, that Eric's working on coming up with the plan, I mean.
He and I have
the
been-
village, who's working on it?
He and I have been working on it. We
Okay.
talk about
Well,
every week on figuring out how we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, to have us sit here and say,
This is the first time I'm hearing that anybody's working on this, okay, so that's why I brought it up. Okay, so, from my, standpoint, nothing was happening. Okay, so that's why I brought it up, now I understand it's being worked on, great, glad to hear it.
I mean, we're a bureaucracy whether we wanna be or not, the wheels are gonna turn slow and there's only so much we can do about it.
Well, and communication would help to let us know that that's what you guys are working on.
All right, we'll work to share an early draft once we.
Because again, personally, I don't understand why someone shouldn't be allowed to cut the grass right behind their house on the reserve. I mean, I don't know what you guys are working on.
Right.
That's the thing, I guess, the thing I'd like to have a conversation amongst the planning and zoning commission about what is and isn't acceptable.
So, right, and so I'll give you an example, right? Like, what you just said, I probably agree with. if someone wants to mow, now what if they've got an entire acre out the back of their house and they wanna mow it to a 1/4 inch like a putting green? And the neighbor right next to them absolutely does not want that, and they're looking out pretty much the same back window. I agreed with you first, now I don't know if I agree with you with all the information, so this is.
things that need
a lot
to
of
be
time
figured
lit-
out.
And this group will sit here and have a conversation, like we just did for the variance tonight, to say, yeah, this all makes sense, or this doesn't make sense.
There are any number of issues, especially liability, once we allow people to mow onto our property. If they injure themselves, if they injure someone else, if they cause damage, there's all kinds of problems. It has to be carefully considered, and there's a number of steps. The correct way to handle it at the moment is we do not grant any permission to do anything on our property, just as you as a private owner would not allow your neighbor to come and do all kinds of crazy stuff on your property. And that's how it has to be treated. That's why there's criminal code that deals with it, not zoning code.
And so we're, like I said, we're working on, right now we're talking about native plants, so that if you wanna plant something, don't plant something that's invasive and gonna kill everything else. So we're working on it, and if you wanna be involved, let me know.
I want to be involved in so many different things that I don't find out until I keep complaining and complaining, and then I finally find, oh, you are working on it. It's like, but I appreciate your work. Thank you. Can't wait to see the product of that work.
Any new business?
Well, I have a question, I don't know if it's new business. What is the status of our meeting minutes? Like, aren't we supposed to get meeting minutes and vote on them?
So I'll be doing that every time.
We lost a staff again, so minutes will get done when minutes get done. I'll have to have the mayor address that with you. I
Well,
can't
isn't
address
that
that.
illegal? I mean, isn't that a legal thing?
And we can have our
Like that we
attorney,
need to vote on them?
we
and
can have
that-
our attorney address it too. If you'd like, we can get a little quick opinion concerning it. It's not the end of the world. We do have to assign staff time to do it.
Well, it's
And I
just that if we have meeting minutes, things like these forms that come up, or this hearing, this on the variance, I mean, that you can like look back and refer to it and like, oh, there it is, we talked about it on this date. But without that, and without having them or voting on them or a continuing process of that, I just think that as far as like the communication and keeping update, I mean, like I wasn't at one of the meetings because I was on vacation, and then the next meetings were canceled and I didn't get a notice and I didn't find out about it, and then, so that's why I think that the meeting minutes are important to have as part of this.
Not disagreeing, I'll let the mayor know.
And I agree with you. I
So
mean,
why
from a
is-
legal standpoint, we have recordings of every meeting.
Why is it the administration, I mean, council has meeting minutes. Their meeting minutes are put on the website every week, or every time they have a meeting.
I think it's a staffing issue.
Yeah, so the priority, I would assume, is being given to the council meeting minutes. This body has recordings, we have to play catch-up sometimes.
Don't take this as me being
Yeah.
snarky at all. If you would be willing to serve as secretary, or if anyone would be willing to serve as secretary, I think we could do our own minutes. I don't think they'd be that difficult.
I mean, almost everybody has a secretary to
Right.
do meeting minutes, so I was kind of surprised we didn't have.
There's no reason we can't do that,
No,
right?
you can assign somebody to it, or they can
Would you
volunteer.
Or we can
I'll do it.
rotate by meeting, I don't care, I think you're absolutely right, I think we need minutes.
Yeah.
So if there's a way that we can do it without,
Or if it's like, I don't know if we get are the recordings just so that the person doing it can take
Yes,
the minutes?
so essentially what
from
staff would do is take the recording and they would transcribe it. That's how
so,
it
yeah,
would
they
work.
only need the recording because they're not here, but if one of us is here and wants to do it, let's do it.
Yeah, at the time, and you can always refer, we can get you a copy of that WAV file and send it to you if you'd like.
Well,
for
that
reference.
would be helpful to tell you,
Yes.
you can double check
But, I mean-
what more of the facts against what is being written.
We have 6 months worth of minutes to approve before I became the chairman.
Yeah, because we had lost, again, staff members, we were out someone for 3 or 4 months.
Right.
It's just the way it
So
goes.
it's a staffing issue straight up. So if we can staff that ourselves, I'm 100% for it.
Okay,
Yeah,
So let's maybe, next meeting, let's do that.
okay.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, I
You know-
I think it's important to have that.
It's usually the youngest, newest guy.
since we're on,
Yeah.
since we're on,
Probably done your head.
since we're on admin items, the calendar's a little odd in September. The first is actually on a Wednesday, but then we've got multiple weeks behind it. If I had put on the 8th, which will run right before the second meeting for council, so we definitely won't run in the same week, because we have kind of an odd start to our weeks, so my,
5 in September?
yeah, so my recommendation, as I put on the thing, is we would start a meeting on the 8th, which would be the second Wednesday. Council will then, this is technically the second Monday follows that, so we would still be off weeks for council meetings, but not have to worry about a meeting right there on the first Wednesday, which seems to cause problems.
I would prefer to do the 3rd and the 5th Wednesdays,
Third and the fifth Wednesdays?
as opposed to 2nd and 4th, only
The third-
because I have a,
Okay, we can do that. The third and fifth will definitely run the same week as council. I mean, it's just 2 meetings a week, and we'll if that's the preference, we'll get that straightened out.
so
We can-
council you said meets on the,
They will meet on the second Monday, so that would be
Oh,
the
okay.
third Wednesday.
okay.
It's the
Well,
first,
we just decided to start doing Tuesdays. Oh, you weren't here for that. We're starting to do council meetings on Tuesday night for the next month.
okay, so are we doing, it'd still be the same week, I assume?
Yes, it
Right,
starts on
so
Wednesday.
Monday,
Starts on Monday.
Just a day later.
perfect, that's fine.
Is there a reason we're switching on from first and third?
Are you talking about,
mean,
for
when
our
was-
meeting? The reason being is you can do that, the first, it's an odd month with September because it starts, the first Wednesday is in 2 weeks, of course, but it's the very first day of the month on the Wednesday. It seems to cause attendance issues, one, for being an odd day.
Well,
And
just
then
let people know.
we run, yeah, I understand that, but then it's more of a, especially if you actually want some of these things done, they won't get done in, if I may, they won't get done in 2 weeks for some of the quoting. I can tell you that for the thing with the amphitheater, so.
I feel like if you're switching it from first and third to second and fourth and third and fifth, that's gonna cause an attendance issue.
Okay,
If I
Lisa,
know it's the first and third, then I know.
if I may,
it's-
Lisa, in the past, as you have served on this, as long as I have been here,
Uh-huh.
we have run into problems on the first Wednesdays on a consistent basis with attendance when it runs that first meeting. So I'm simply bringing up a recommendation as an observation. I'm not the one that decides when we switch. I'm making a recommendation. You have made your opinion known. I leave it to the rest of the body to decide when they want to have their meetings.
I would like to keep the meeting on the 1st. And then decide on the 1st when the next meeting will be.
Very good. So we will see everybody again on the 1st, which is a Wednesday, in 2 weeks.
Right, because that's not a council week.
That is not a council meeting.
Okay, let's do that.
Very good. Very good.
Okay, any other new business? We're adjourned.
Beautiful.